The night rain hammered the rusty rooftop of Zola's tiny food stall in Oyalagba, Lagos. The aroma of her late grandmother's spicy okra stew danced through the air as she served her last bowl, her very last meal of the day, maybe even the week. Business had been terrible, her stove was failing, and Zola herself hadn't eaten since morning, and she saw him. A frail, dusty man with trembling hands and tired eyes approached her counter. His clothes were torn, his hair uncombed, and he smelled like he had been living under the flyover for days. "Please, anything. Even scraps," he whispered. Inside, Zola's heart clenched. Her stomach was empty. Her pocket was emptier. Her landlord had given her until Friday to pay overdue rent or lose her stall. Her younger brother in school needed fees. Her mother needed her blood pressure meds yet. She slid the bowl toward the stranger. "Eat," she said softly. "You need it more than I do." He looked at her with strange, searching eyes, like he was studying her soul, not her food. Zola didn't know she had just fed Koimeki, the world's most feared and respected food critic, a man whose reviews could turn cooks into legends or destroy them forever. The city of Lagos never sleeps, but that night, it felt like it sighed, long and heavy, as if the rains were washing away secrets it had carried for generations. Beneath the buzzing streetlights and honking dandos, Zola worked alone in her cramped stall, wiping down counters that had seen better days. Much better days. Her grandmother, Nana Zinzi, had opened the stall 28 years ago, a wooden kiosk painted with bright sunflowers and the word Zinzi's blessings. To generations of commuters it had been a sanctuary of warmth, aroma, and love. Nana Zinzi believed food was a prayer. Every dish carried its own blessing. Zola inherited her hands, her courage and her recipes, but not the world Nana lived in. Lagos had grown harsher, faster, more unforgiving. Big restaurants dominated the food scene. Influencers made or destroyed reputations. And small stalls like hers struggled to survive. Still, she kept going. At 27. Zola was known in her neighborhood for her stubborn kindness, the kind that made her give free food even when she couldn't afford a new gas cylinder. The kind that made people shake their heads and say, "This girl will feed the whole world before she feeds herself." And tonight, that kindness had cost her her last meal. She watched through the window as the stranger, the homeless man, ate slowly, savoring each spoonful like it was sacred. His eyes closed as the spices hit his tongue. The steam warmed his face, but something else softened his expression. Something like relief. "Thank you," he murmured when he finished, voice shaky. "People don't give freely anymore." Zola forced a smile, but her heart felt heavy. The stall was empty. The pot was empty. Even the jar where she kept her savings, her emergency fund, held only a few crumpled Naira notes. And tomorrow would bring more bills she couldn't pay. Her younger brother Tapua had called earlier, voice trembling. They said if I don't pay by Friday I can't sit for exams." Friday. 2 days away. Then her mother called again. "Zola, my medicine finished yesterday. They won't give me more until I pay. How is business today?" She lied. "Better. I'll sort it out." She always lied like that, not out of deceit but out of love. Now, watching the stranger walk away with a limp and his satchel tightly held to his chest, she wondered if she had done the right thing. "Maybe Nana would scold me," she whispered to the empty stall. "Or maybe she'd be proud." But hunger twisted in her stomach and fear tightened in her chest. Everything was slipping away. The next morning didn't bring relief. Lagos traffic roared awake like a beast. Commuters hurried past her stall without stopping. A flashy new restaurant had just opened 2 streets away, offering authentic African fusion bowls. Influencers were already posting photos with glowing captions. Meanwhile, Zola's stall remained a forgotten corner. By noon, she had sold only 4 plates. 4. Her hands shook slightly from hunger, but she kept smiling at customers. She had learned to hide the tremble like many Lagosians hid their pain. Around 1 p.m., a sleek black SUV parked across the street. Windows tinted, engine humming. Strange, it stayed there for hours. Every time she lifted her eyes, The SUV was still there, quiet, unmoving, watching. By evening, her pot was still half full, a bad sign. When she finally locked up, she walked past the SUV, pretending not to notice. She was too tired to be afraid. But the moment she boarded, a kick to go home. The SUV pulled out and followed at a distance. Her pulse quickened. Why would anyone follow a nobody like me? She shook the thought away. Probably a coincidence. Probably nothing. But deep inside, a quiet instinct, the kind her grandmother warned her never to ignore, whispered, "Something is coming." Something big. Thursday, Zola came to the stall early, exhausted. She hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Her legs felt weak, her head light. When she stirred the pot of stew, her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped the spoon. Only 6 customers came that day. 6. She rationed ingredients carefully, knowing she didn't have enough money to restock. By sunset, her vision blurred. She leaned on the counter to steady herself. There she saw him. The stranger. The homeless man from the stormy night. His clothes were cleaner now, not fancy, but neat. His hair is freshly trimmed. His shoes were polished. And he carried himself with a quiet authority she hadn't seen before. He approached her stall with a slow, deliberate stride as rain clouds gathered again. "Excuse me," he said softly. Zola stiffened. "I don't have extra food today. Things are tough." He raised his hand. "I'm not here for food." He reached into his satchel and pulled out a leather notebook. Thick, worn, heavy. A notebook that smelled of airports, Michelin-star kitchens, and places Zola had only seen on TV. "I need to talk to you," he said. "About that meal you gave me." And suddenly, in that moment, something about his eyes shifted, not the eyes of a homeless man. Not the eyes of someone begging for scraps. But the eyes of someone who had seen the world. And judged it. Zola stepped back, heart pounding. Who was this man? Why was he following her stall? And why did his presence feel like the beginning of something she wasn't ready for? He opened the notebook. Inside were sketches of dishes, handwritten critiques, culinary maps, tasting notes, stamps from restaurants across 3 continents. Then he flipped to a page where her name was written in bold strokes, Zola Lover, hidden diamond. She gasped. He lifted his head, eyes warm yet sharp. "My name is Kwaiman Becky," he said. "Editor-in-chief of Global Culinary Review." Her breath caught. He continued softly, "And the world is about to know your name. Where the humiliation spreads online, the outrage builds, and the first wave of poetic justice begins." The storm arrived faster than Zola expected. When she woke that morning, she believed her humiliation would stay inside the walls of the Golden Palm Bistro, the place where she had worked tirelessly for 3 years. The place where her dreams had once lived. She thought the embarrassment from the previous night would eventually fade away, swallowed by the noise of Lagos life. But Lagos had a way of making the smallest sparks burn into wildfires. And this wildfire started with a single phone. At the moment she handed her a homeless man second, she never imagined that anyone was recording. She had no idea that behind the outdoor generator box, a young man named Tund had pointed his smartphone right at her. He wasn't recording her to mock her. He recorded because something inside him told him he was witnessing a heartbeat moment, a kind of kindness that felt too rare in the city's chaos. But he never guessed the chain reaction it would unleash. By sunrise, Tund's video hit 100,000 views. By mid-morning, it reached 500,000. By noon, Lagos was on fire. The video that changed everything. The clip wasn't long, maybe 30 seconds. Zola was walking out from the back exit of the restaurant holding a small, battered lunch bowl containing her last meal of the day, a modest serving of rice she had saved from staff leftovers. She was tired, bone-tired, but she still smiled when she saw Sekou sitting near the dumpsters, shivering under a faded wrapper. In the video, she crouched and lifted the bowl gently, as if offering it to a king. Sekou, startled, shook his head. Zola insisted, placing the food into his hands with a softness that made viewers around the world freeze. Then came the moment that nobody expected. As Sekou whispered, "God bless you, my daughter. Zola's eyes glistened not with pride, but with a quiet, exhausted sadness. It was the look of someone who had given away the only thing she had, without expecting anything in return. That look, raw, vulnerable, unfiltered, hit the internet like a meteor. People stitched a clip, duetted it, narrated it. "She's a real one. Angels walk among us. This is what humanity looks like. She didn't know she was being filmed. Protect her at all costs. Where is this girl?" Someone found her. And within hours, millions of strangers felt something they hadn't in a long while. Hope. Meanwhile, Zola had no idea. By late morning, Zola was dragging herself through the dusty streets of Mushin, searching for any cheap breakfast job she could pick up. She knew she couldn't return to the Golden Palm Bistro. She had been fired the previous night after refusing to serve a corrupt customer who had insulted her. Her boss, Madame Runk, wanted to teach her a lesson. Zola accepted her fate quietly. What else could she do? She had rent to pay. Her younger brother, Malik, needed school fees, and their mother's hypertension medication wasn't going to pay for itself. But instead of dwelling on her humiliation, she focused on moving forward as she always had. When her pocket buzzed with messages, she ignored them, assuming they were the usual mobile network promotions she never subscribed to. She didn't know her world was already shifting. The outrage builds across Lagos Island. In a cramped apartment where three friends shared rent, Ton stared at his screen with wide eyes. His video had just crossed 1 million views. He kept refreshing each time the numbers leaped like they were alive. He posted again, "Who knows this girl? Lagos people, help me find her. She deserves something good in her life." And Lagos responded like a lion waking from sleep. People posted in neighborhood groups. They shared the clip on WhatsApp family chats. Taxi drivers played it on their phones. Street vendors replayed it while frying puff-puff. Hairdressers showed it to customers. Office workers watched it during lunch. Within hours, radio shows were discussing the girl who gave her last meal away. Morning podcasts were debating the morality of kindness amid poverty. Even TV stations picked it up, calling it the most touching moment caught on camera this year. Strangers cried watching Zola choosing generosity over survival. Mothers prayed for her. Students admired her. Market women defended her. Corporate workers promised they would help her if found. Something collective awakened. Something powerful. Meanwhile, the Golden Palm Bistro was in trouble at that very moment. Madame Runk was sipping her morning tea in her glass-walled office. Completely oblivious to the monster headed her way, the restaurant's reputation had always been her armor. She believed she could do no wrong. She prided herself on high standards, which usually meant mistreating staff and favoring wealthy customers who flaunted their arrogance like gold chains. But around 11:30 a.m., her receptionist, Kemi, burst into the office. "Madam, we have a problem." Runk frowned. "What can happen?" Kemi, shaking, handed her a tablet. On the screen was the video. Madame Runk's eyes widened. "Wait, Zola be this?" "Yes, ma. And people do ask questions." Runk scrolled through the comments, her face tightening. "This girl just brings unnecessary attention to herself," she snapped. But that was before she saw the stitched videos, the ones where former staff publicly called out the Golden Palm Bistro's mistreatment. Runk's breath caught. In 2 hours, her restaurant had become a symbol of exploitation. People posted anonymously. "I worked there, she's right. They treat the staff horribly. The customer insulted her and they fired her. That place is wicked." Hashtag cancel Golden Palm began trending on all platforms. And the customers noticed. By noon, several bookings had already been cancelled. By 1 p.m., the restaurant was empty. By 2 p.m., angry reviewers were bombarding their pages with 1-star ratings. Runk felt her stomach sink. This wasn't just bad publicity. This was a full-blown disaster. Zola finally sees the video at exactly 2:47 p.m. while sitting under an abandoned kiosk near Ojawoi Market. Exhausted and hungry, Zola borrowed a stranger's phone to check her messages. She noticed 62 missed calls from her brother Malik. Her heart raced. She called him back immediately. "Malik, what happened?" Ah, Sister Zola. Where do you die? You don't see the internet? Internet? Which one? Ha! You dumb blow. Moloch shouted. You don't turn into a celebrity. What are you talking about? She asked, confused. Sister. Somebody records you when you give your food to that homeless man. The whole world will talk about you. Zola's heartbeat stumbled. No, no, no. She whispered, trembling. The market woman who loaned her the phone looked at her curiously. Are you the girl on that video? She asked softly. Zola's breath hitched. I don't know. The woman smiled and turned her phone screen toward her. There it was. Zola froze. Her own face stared back at her, raw, tired yet gentle, caring for a man the world rarely looked at. She watched herself kneel, watched Seku's eyes fill with gratitude, and watched the moment everyone was talking about. She watched the kindness she had given in private become a public spectacle. Her chest tightened. Her throat closed. I didn't know. She whispered. The market woman patted her shoulder. My child, kindness no day hide forever. Sometimes God day expose 'em for your blessing. Zola blinked hard, fighting tears. Blessing? She murmured. That I don't even know the man. If it be say the real blessing never reaches you yet, the woman replied. Meanwhile, Seku was being searched for back near the restaurant alley. Seku sat under the same wrapper, unaware that people were searching for him too. A group of youth corps members passed by, showing everyone his picture on their phones. That homeless man, anybody knows where he will stay? Check that corner. Someone said he sleeps under the bridge near Oyalegba. He must not suffer again. Humanity, triggered by the video, extended its arms toward him too. Meals were offered. People brought water. Someone gave him a small blanket. Another left slippers next to him. Seku sat frozen, overwhelmed. No one had treated him like this in years. When asked about the girl, he said softly, I don't know her name. But she has a heart of gold. His words traveled quickly. The public fell even deeper in love with the girl who had given her last meal without hesitation. At 4 p.m., something unexpected happened. A famous Lagos-based chef, Adekunle Bako, owner of the award-winning Riverstone House, posted, Find this girl for me. I'll give her a full scholarship to the African Culinary Institute. Then another chef joined. Then a philanthropist. Then an international cooking influencer. Opportunities piled up like a rising tide, scholarships, apprenticeship offers, job offers from fine dining establishments, even sponsorship deals from food brands. People wanted her. People wanted to help her. People wanted to give back what she had freely given. At the same time, the world's top food critic watches the clip. In a quiet suite at the Echo Hotel, a man sat with a glass of Zobo tea. His face was stern, calm, unreadable, like someone who had seen too much of the world and grown tired of its superficiality. His name, Kwame Becky, the world's most feared and respected food critic. The same critic who once closed 3 prestigious restaurants with a single review. The same critic whose palate could elevate or destroy any culinary dream. He was in Nigeria on a discreet tour of African cuisine. No one knew he was in Lagos. But when his assistant showed him the viral clip, he didn't blink. He didn't speak. He simply replayed it, once, twice, a third time. Something about the young woman in the video, her humility, her quiet strength, her ability to serve with reverence, despite hunger, pulled him in. He leaned back in his chair. Find her, he said quietly. His assistant blinked. Sir, find the girl? Yes, he said. I want to meet her. As the world hunted for her, Zola panicked. Fame scared her. Attention scared her. She didn't want cameras. She didn't want pity. She didn't want people digging into her life. She just wanted a quiet job, a small kitchen, a place where she could cook and disappear. So she did the only thing she could think of. She ran. She slipped through the market crowd, dodged a group of loggers holding phones, avoided students shouting her name, and eventually she disappeared into the maze of back streets. She didn't know where to go. She only knew she needed air. But Lagos traffic found her first. A kick rider slowed beside her. "Auntie Zola, no runno. The whole world will find you." Please, I'm not used to this," she said, breathless. "You do good things," the rider replied. "Good things must follow you." Zola shook her head. "I didn't do anything special." On. He laughed. "Now so Engels Day talk." She tried to protest, but he rode off waving. The more she hid, the more people kept discovering her. And that's when the first true twist of fate arrived. By evening, Madame Ronk realized she had no option left. Her business was bleeding customers. Influencers were dragging her name. Bloggers were digging up old stories. Even her banker called to check on her situation. She needed to control the narrative. She needed Zola. So she dialed Zola's number. But Zola didn't answer. She called again. Then again. Then she sent a message. "Zola, come back to work. Let's talk." Zola stared at the message with a mixture of disbelief and disgust. After firing her? After humiliating her? After calling her too emotional to be a chef? No, she deleted the message. The restaurant's downfall was beginning. And Zola was finally stepping into the destiny that had always waited for her. When the search intensifies, the truth about Suku begins to unfold, and the critic draws closer. Night came early over Lagos, wrapping the city in its restless symphony. Car horns, distant generators, shouts from street vendors, laughter, gossip, music shifting from Afrobeats to Fuji to gospel, all blending into the heartbeat of the metropolis. But that night, Lagos beat differently. There was a tension in the air. A communal urgency, as if millions of people were holding one collective breath. Find the girl. Find Zola. She didn't understand why. Even as she hid in a small alley behind a fabric shop in Teosho Market, she kept whispering to herself, "I didn't do anything special." But her phone kept vibrating. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of messages. 1,000 tagged posts. Her brother Malik sent voice notes, each one sounding more excited than the last. "Sister, do you know one chef from London who says he will sponsor you? Sister, dem don't talk about you from morning radio. Sister, even my school principal says you are an inspiration." Zola shut off her phone again. She wasn't ready. She wasn't built for fame, as she certainly wasn't prepared for the man who was coming for her next. Meanwhile, Kwemeki moves through Lagos quietly. The world's most feared food critic didn't like crowds, and he disliked attention even more. Which explained why, despite being a global culinary titan, he wore simple clothes, a gray cotton shirt, dark denim, no jewelry, no brand name in sight. His assistant, a polite Kenyan woman named Amina, followed 2 steps behind him as they stepped into a discreet black SUV. "Sir, the social media data team has traced the girl's last known location to Mushin," she said. "Mushin," Kwembeki repeated, letting the name settle. He had visited many world kitchens: Tokyo, Paris, Cape Town, Marrakesh, New Orleans, but Lagos still fascinated him. He always said, if you want to understand the future of flavor, study Africa. Now he was in the city again, unexpectedly drawn not by a restaurant, not by a recipe, but by a girl who had given away her only food without hesitation. "Take me to the boy who recorded the video," he said. "Tund?" Amina confirmed. "Yes, start with him." "Understood." The SUV eased into late evening traffic. Swallowed into the living river of Lagos life, Tund becomes an accidental celebrity at that same moment. Tund stood in front of his mother's small kiosk. Shocked by his own sudden fame, people approached him nonstop. "You be the boy we recorded that video with? Where do you see the girl? How do you find me? Guy, you sabi say you helped change her life?" Tund, overwhelmed, kept scratching his head. "All of Una, relax, I'm trying to find her too." One woman scolded him. "Make sure to say you treat her story with respecto. No use em for clout." Tund nodded vigorously. Even he didn't understand how this thing had blown up. When the black SUV stopped beside him, he froze. The window rolled down, and Kwembeki looked right at him. Tun's jaw dropped. He had only ever seen the man on YouTube food documentaries. You're the guy that shut down that French restaurant? Amina stifled a laugh. Mbeki simply nodded. I need to find the girl in your video. Tund blinked hard. Sir, even if I never see you today, then let's find her together. For a moment, Tund felt like he was dreaming. But he jumped into the SUV without hesitation. Destiny had a strange sense of humor. Zola returns to check on Sakua's. The city buzzed and spread her name like wildfire. Zola quietly slipped into the alley behind the Golden Palm Bistro. She needed to check on the homeless man, Seku, the man whose gratitude had sparked everything. Mosquitoes buzzed around her as she stepped toward the familiar corner. But Saku wasn't there. Her heart skipped. She searched behind the dumpsters, checked under the broken fridge, called softly, Baba. Baba Saku? Only silence answered. Fear gripped her. Has something happened to him? She turned to leave and bumped into a figure. He stood there, wrapped in his old blanket, but now holding a small plastic bag of food somebody had given him. Sister Zola, he whispered. She exhaled in relief. Ah, Baba, thank God. People have been looking for you. He frowned. Looking for me? Why? Because of the video. His confusion deepened. Video? She explained gently, describing how someone had filmed the moment she shared her food, how the world had reacted, how people were searching for the two of them. Saku shook his head in disbelief. God works in strange ways. Then he reached into his pocket, pulling out something Zola had never seen before. A folded, slightly torn photograph. Slippers next to him. A younger Saku. Zola gasped. You were a chef? His eyes softened. A long time ago. In another life. Before everything went wrong. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. The weight in his voice told 1,000 stories. Come, he said suddenly. There's something I must tell you. Something important about him. Zola repeated. But Saku didn't answer. He looked toward the street as if expecting someone. Someone from his past. Across Lagos, people started reporting sightings. I just saw her in Teosho. No, she's heading toward Yaba. I saw her near Ojuwai. She dey go Surler side. Tund kept refreshing the tags on his phone. Guy. Everybody sees her everywhere, but nobody can hold her. Meki leaned forward, studying the patterns on the map. She's running away, he murmured. Tund turned. Yes, sir. She is too shy. No, Mbeki said calmly. Not shy, overwhelmed. He spoke as if he truly understood her. Tund pointed to the screen again. Wait, see this. Someone said she was going to check on the homeless man at the restaurant. Meki's eyes sharpened. Driver, take us to the Golden Palm Bistro, now. The engine ignited. Destiny shifted. Madame Rock was losing her mind. Her kitchen staff were threatening to quit. Customers had stopped coming entirely. Social media was tearing her reputation apart. Her phone buzzed nonstop with reporters calling for statements. She screamed at her staff, will somebody find that girl for me? If she agrees to talk on video, all this nonsense will end. But nobody listened. And then the restaurant door swung open. Reporters rushed in with microphones, cameras, and lights. Madame Ronk, is it true you fired the girl in the viral video? Did you humiliate your staff? Why did you allow customers to insult her? What is your response to the scandal online? Ronk backed away, shaking. No comment. No comment. But they chased her. The restaurant that once intimidated staff was now a haunted place. Karma had arrived early. Zola tries to leave with Seku. Zola grabs Seku's arm gently. Baba, you shouldn't stay here. People might disturb you. But Seku resisted. No. I'm waiting for someone. Someone I never thought I would see again. Who? He looked at her with tired eyes. Zola, the man searching for you. I knew him. Before everything collapsed, you knew who? Seku hesitated. Then said a name that made her breath still. Mbeki. Zola blinked. The food critic? The one destroying restaurants? Sekou nodded slowly. He was my student. Student? You're joking. He shook his head. Before fate humbled me, before life scattered my dreams, before poverty swallowed me, I taught him everything he knows. Zola staggered back. The homeless man she fed had once mentored the world's most feared critic. What happened? She whispered. Seko, you lowered his voice. One day I will tell you. But not now. He's coming. Zola swallowed hard. How do you know? Sekou pointed to the sky. Because God doesn't waste moments. Your kindness was not an accident. The encounter begins just then. Headlights cut across the alley. A black SUV turned the corner. Zola froze. Sekou whispered, he's here. Tun jumped out first. Sister Zola? I found you. Zola almost ran again, but she saw who stepped out behind him. Kwembeki. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He simply walked toward her with measured steps, each one deliberate. Zola lowered her gaze, heart pounding. She expected anger. She expected judgment. She expected the coldness that came from someone used to power, but the man who stopped in front of her was quiet, gentle, almost humbled. You are Zola, he said simply. His voice was softer than she expected. She nodded slowly. He studied her, not her clothes, not her poverty, not her exhaustion, but her eyes, the same eyes that had moved millions. Then he said, thank you. Zola trembled. For what, sir? For reminding the world what service truly looks like. Sekou stepped forward. His blanket dragging KWA, and Becky's breath hitched. The critic who destroyed restaurants, without blinking, looked like a man seeing a ghost. Baba, he whispered. Sekou smiled weakly. Hello, my son. Tun's mouth fell open. Do you know each other? Amina clasped her hands in shock. Kwembeki reached for Sekou, voice cracking. I thought you were dead. Sekou chuckled softly. Life kept me alive long enough to witness this moment. Tears filled Kwembeki's eyes, the world's toughest critic undone by an unexpected reunion. Zola felt like she was standing inside a destiny she never asked for. The truth about Sekou, three of them moved deeper into the alley, away from curious eyes. Kwembeki knelt beside the older man. Why didn't you contact me? He whispered. Sekou shrugged. What would I say? That the world had beaten me? That I lost everything? A man must have dignity. Zola knelt also. Baba, you never said you taught a world-famous chef. Sekou smiled sadly. I was once respected. I ran one of the first African fusion kitchens in Senegal. I traveled. I taught. I dreamed. What happened? Kwembeki asked. Sekou exhaled. A fire. The restaurant burned. I lost my wife. I lost everything. Grief swallowed me. And I lost myself. Silence hovered. Zola touched his hand gently. Baba, I'm so sorry. Sekou squeezed her hand. You are a light in the darkness, my child. Do not ever think your kindness was small. It saved me. Tears filled Zola's eyes. But then Sekou's tone changed. Kwembeki, hear me? This girl, Zola, she has a gift. Kwembeki turned to her. A gift? Yes, Sekou said firmly. The gift of heart. The gift that every great chef must have. I want you to train her, Zola gasped. Train me? No, no. Sir, I'm not. Kwembeki lifted a hand gently. Zola, he said, would you join me for one day? Let me see your skill. She shook her head. I don't belong in fancy kitchens. Kindness belongs everywhere, he replied. And then he added, and you are exactly where you need to be. Asterisk, asterisk, a crowd begins to form before they could continue. Voices echoed from the street. She's here. Zola Day this side. Call the news people. Madame Runkde Kamo. Kwembeki died with them. Aha, wahala. A crowd gathered at the alley entrance. Reporters, influencers, curious neighbors, even former restaurant staff. Cameras flashed. Microphones pushed forward. Voices erupted. Zola, what do you want to say to the world? Do you regret giving your food away? Are you going to sue the restaurant? Is it true you were mistreated? Zola felt her chest tighten. Her breath shortened, her vision blurred. The noise was too much. She whispered to Mbeki, I can't breathe. He stepped forward, shielding her from the cameras. Everyone step back, he commanded, his voice firm, authoritative. But they didn't listen. The crowd surged louder. Zola pressed a hand to her chest and whispered, I want to go home. Mbeki reached for her shoulder. A decision had to be made. The next morning in Lagos arrived with a heaviness that clung to the air like wet smoke. And though Zola tried to steady her breathing as she rolled out of her narrow bed, she could already hear the distant echo of yesterday's calamity pounding inside her skull. The reporters shouting outside Mama Coco's, the neighbors whispering as if she carried a contagious failure, the sting of Madame Busy's betrayal. And above all, the memory of the homeless man's quiet gratitude as he accepted the last meal she owned. Yet, as she tightened the old wrapper around her waist and walked toward her tiny stove to boil water, her phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some cruel, some mocking, some confused, and some from strangers who simply asked if she was okay, because in the relentless theater of social media, public opinion could shift like desert wind, unpredictable, swirling, and vicious. But before she could respond to any of them, a loud knock rattled her door. And standing there was her younger brother, Chima, with fear pooled in his eyes, his breath heavy, saying the one sentence that made her stomach twist. Zola, something big is happening outside. Everybody at the junction is shouting your name. She followed him barefoot into the compound where dozens of neighbors gathered under the mango tree. Staring at the massive billboard truck parked at the end of the street, and plastered across it was a large, crisp image of her face. No makeup, no filters. Just Zola handing a warm plate of okra stew to the homeless man, and below it were words that made her freeze. The chef who gave away her last meal, a hero of the people. Nobody understood where it came from or who put it there. But the crowd reacted instantly, some cheering for her kindness, others trying to record her reaction, and Zola, embarrassed yet humbled, tried to speak, but her throat tightened, because she couldn't reconcile the fact that the same city that had dragged her through the mud the night before was now lifting her up like a saint. Yet before the moment could settle, a convoy of sleek black SUVs turned into the street, clearing the path as if royalty had arrived. And Zola's pulse quickened, because this didn't feel like ordinary Lagos traffic. This felt intentional. The doors opened and out stepped two heavily suited men, followed by a slender woman with a sharp bob, sunglasses, and a tablet in hand. As she walked directly toward Zola, ignoring the murmuring crowd, extending a business card without breaking eye contact, saying, Miss Zola, as you are requested immediately at the Salao Grand Hotel. This concerns the video circulating online. Your presence is required by the International Culinary Board. For a moment, Zola thought she misheard. The Culinary Board? A woman who couldn't even afford new gas for her stove. She hesitated, clutching the card, but after Chima nudged her gently, she nodded and climbed into the SUV, nerves rattling in her chest. The ride felt long yet too short at the same time, her hands sweating against her folded wrapper, her mind replaying every minute of the encounter with the homeless man. Did she say something wrong? Did she offend him unknowingly? Was he actually dangerous? Had someone reported her, or worse, had Madame Busy done something to ruin her further? But the moment she stepped into the luxurious lobby of Salao Grand, she felt the weight of 100 eyes. Waiters froze mid-step, guests whispered behind menus, and the manager rushed forward with trembling hands as if a queen had arrived, offering her cold water, a seat, and nervous smiles. Before she could settle, the elevator dinged and the doors opened onto a penthouse floor shimmering with gold accents in glass, walls overlooking all of Lagos. And there, standing at the far end of the room, staring out into the horizon with his hands clasped behind him, was the homeless man, except he was no longer homeless. He was dressed in a tailored, charcoal suit like a man who commanded continents. And when he turned around, Zola's breath snagged in her throat because he looked completely transformed, clean-shaved. Hair groomed with precision, posture proud and straight, eyes sharp and awake, and he smiled the kind of smile only people accustomed to wealth carried, calm and heavy with meaning. And when he spoke, his voice was deep, steady, and unmistakably authoritative. Zola, thank you for feeding me when you had nothing. Her knees nearly buckled. She swallowed hard, whispering, You're not who I thought you were. He nodded slowly, stepping closer. My name is Quaim Becky. I am the founder of the World Taste Guild, and yes, the critics call me the most elusive food reviewer alive. The room shifted. The air felt thinner. Zola's lips parted, but no sound emerged as Quaim continued. I disguise myself purposely across nations, searching for genuine kindness, people whose cooking carries soul, not ego, not greed. His eyes softened as he looked at her. And you, Zola, showed me what true generosity tastes like. She tried to respond, but her voice cracked with disbelief as she struggled to process how a woman who lost her job and her last plate of food in the same hour could now be standing before the world's top critic. Yet Quaim wasn't finished. He stepped aside and motioned toward a long table where several world-renowned chefs sat with intrigued faces, and a panel chairwoman cleared her throat and announced, Mrs. After witnessing your authenticity and dedication, the Guild has shortlisted you for the Rising Hearth Award, an honor given to only one chef every decade. Gasps filled the room. Chima, who had quietly followed, clapped a hand over his mouth to keep from shouting. Zola blinked rapidly, unable to comprehend how her life was shifting faster than she could breathe. But she raised both hands instinctively, shaking her head. But I'm not qualified. I don't have a restaurant anymore. I don't have equipment. I don't even have money for ingredients. Quaim walked closer, voice firm with reassurance. Qualification isn't in your pocket, Zola. It's in your heart. The panel nodded in agreement. And the chairwoman added, However, before we finalize your nomination, we need one thing. You must cook for us today, here, right now. Zola froze again. Cook? With what? The doors opened, and staff wheeled in a full premium kitchen set up shiny burners, polished pots, baskets of the freshest vegetables from northern farms, spices from across West and East Africa, meats and fish packed on chilled trays, and every tool a chef could dream of. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, terrifying. She walked toward the counter, fingertips brushing the cold steel, and inhaled deeply as old memories began to stir. Her mother teaching her how to cut peppers without bruising them, her grandmother murmuring blessings over every pot, the laughter of her late father calling her my tiny fire, the scent of palm oil simmering through years of hardship. Zola steadied herself, tied the apron provided to her, and whispered, If I'm going to cook, then let me cook something that carries the truth of my journey. And she began chopping onions with reverence, frying okra in slow, rhythmic motions, seasoning fish the way her mother taught her, crushing garlic with the back of a spoon because it released more soul than a knife. She moved like a poet writing in flames, sweating under the bright kitchen lights while the panel watched silently, Quaim observing with the focused expression of a man witnessing history. As the stew simmered fragrant and bold, the room filled with a hush as everyone leaned forward. Zola plated the dish carefully, her hands trembling but her spirit steady. When the judges tasted it, the reaction was immediate: wide eyes, slow exhalations, tears from one judge who whispered, This is home. Quaim tasted his portion last, closing his eyes for a long moment, then sighing deeply as if a weight lifted from his chest. And when he opened his eyes again, his voice carried emotion. Zola, this tastes like survival. Like the truth. Like grace. The entire panel burst into applause, some standing in admiration, as Zola pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed by the sudden swell of validation she didn't know she needed. But just as the room reached its emotional peak, the door swung open and Madame BC stormed in, face twisted with rage, shouting accusations that Zola had stolen her recipe. stolen her spotlight, stolen her customers, and was faking their kindness seen on camera. The room went silent. Quam turned slowly, his expression cooling like ice on steel, and he asked one simple question with cutting calm. "Madam BC, did you give away your last meal to a stranger?" She sputtered. "Why would I know?" Quam nodded. "Then you have answered your own complaint." The panel dismissed her instantly, and security escorted her out as she shouted empty threats, leaving Zola standing in the center of the room, trembling but taller than she had ever felt in her life. Quam turned back to the judges, lifted his hand and declared, "I vote yes." One by one, each judge raised their hand until the majority agreed. The chairwoman smiled warmly at Zola and said, "Congratulations, Miss Els, you are now an official nominee for the Rising Hearth Award." The room erupted again, and Zola covered her face with her hands, tears slipping through her fingers, not of sorrow, but of disbelief, relief and hope, because in less than 24 hours she had fallen, shattered, risen, and now stood on the edge of destiny. But she didn't know that even bigger waves of poetic justice were already forming, waiting to crash upon her world and transform her story beyond anything Lagos or the world had ever seen. Zola sat on the edge of her bed, the weight of the week pressing down on her like a ton of bricks. Her stomach growled, reminding her she hadn't eaten in over a day. Bills were scattered across the table, each one a reminder of what was at stake. Zoe's tuition deadline loomed like a guillotine, and her mother's missed medication only added to the pressure. Yet, in the midst of this chaos, he kept replaying the memory of Kwemembeki's gratitude. The warmth of those words haunted him. Across town, the black sedan lingered outside her food truck. Each time she looked up, she felt the same prickle of unease. Who was watching him? What did they want? She wiped down counters with trembling hands, her fingers raw and blistered from constant work. 8 customers today. 8 measly customers. Not enough to cover the bills, let alone her family's needs. Her body ached from hunger and fatigue. The choice she'd made to feed Kwambeki when she could barely feed herself was eating at him. And the consequences were closing in fast. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Kwambeki appeared again, emerging from the shadows of the city streets like an enigma. He carried the same leather satchel, but his presence felt commanding, almost electric. "Zola," he said, voice calm but sharp, "I need to talk." Zola straightened, trying to mask the tremor in her hands. She couldn't hide the weak suffering, not fully. Not from Konbeki, but there was pride too. The pride of someone who had kept her dignity even in despair. Kwambeki climbed into the truck, surveying the cramped space with a critical eye. "You've lost weight," he noted, almost casually. "When did you last eat?" Zola said nothing. She couldn't. Pride and hunger were at war inside her. Kwambeki, unperturbed, opened the thermos and placed it in front of her. "Soup," he said simply. The aroma was intoxicating. Rich, complex, seasoned with care. Zola's stomach clenched. She could hardly believe it was real. This was restaurant-quality soup, far beyond anything he'd imagined. "And it was for her. I'm not asking you to pay me," Kwambeki added, seeing Zola's hesitation. "I just want you to eat." The first sip was almost painful. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes. It wasn't just hunger, it was relief, validation, and recognition all at once. Kwambeki watched her, eyes sharp, assessing not just how she ate but how she bore his suffering. There was an intensity there that made Zola feel exposed, yet strangely honored. Then Kwambeki dropped the truth. His identity. The name that made the culinary world tremble. Kwambeki, editor-in-chief of Global Culinary Review. Zola's mind reeled. Everything, the kindness, the gratitude, the hunger, had been under observation. Rage and disbelief erupted inside her. She had suffered, starved, and sacrificed for someone who had orchestrated the whole week as part of an experiment. Her voice cracked as she confronted Kwambeki, pouring out a week's worth of fear, anger, and desperation. He spoke of Zoe, her mother, the truck payment, the humiliation, the trembling hands, the sleepless nights. Kwame listened, silent, absorbing every word. "I wasn't testing your food," Kwame finally said, voice steady. "I was testing your character. Talent without integrity is worthless in this industry. You have both." The words sank in, strange and heavy. Zola's anger ebbed slowly, replaced by a tentative understanding. He still felt used, but there was a strange pride now. Someone had seen him, not just the cook, but the man, the soul behind the cooking. And they had acknowledged him, Kwame continued, outlining a vision that seemed almost unreal: investment, expansion, a full partnership with Global Culinary Review. A new fleet of food trucks, restaurant openings, a cookbook, a spice line, and opportunities for Ruby's legacy to live on beyond the neighborhood streets. Zola could barely comprehend the scale. $150,000 in capital. Locations in prime Atlanta neighborhoods. Media coverage that would instantly transform her from a local food truck chef to an international culinary figure. Her dreams, long deferred, suddenly felt within reach. "You'll maintain creative control," Kwame emphasized. "Your recipes, your techniques. Ruby's legacy remains pure." Zola's chest tightened. She thought of her grandmother's hands, her love poured into every dish, every seasoning. Could she really trust someone who had deceived her to carry that forward? But Kwame's sincerity was undeniable. He had seen the struggle, witnessed the dedication, and now offered a partnership that could make the impossible possible. Zola spent that night in turmoil, weighing fear against opportunity. Every worry, the debt, the tuition, the truck, her mother, clashed with the awe of being recognized for her talent. By the morning, she made the call that would change everything. "I'm in," she said, voice firm but trembling. "Let's do this." It was a commitment to more than money or fame. It was a commitment to her family, her community, and the memory of Ruby's teachings. Within hours, the article went live. Global Culinary Review featured Zola on its cover, the story spreading like wildfire. Social media buzzed, food bloggers shared it, news outlets clamored for interviews. By noon, Zola's truck had a line stretching down the block. CNN, Good Morning America, and international media were calling. For the first time in her life, she felt the dizzying, overwhelming surge of success. But unlike other overnight sensations, Zola held on to her principles. Prices remained affordable, quality never wavered, and every plate served honored Ruby's memory. Weeks turned into months. New trucks arrived, state-of-the-art kitchens, digital systems, and employees who shared the vision. Ruby's table opened in Virginia Highland with intimate seating and warm lighting. The menu featured elevated versions of her recipes, but Zola kept costs accessible. Community nights became a tradition-free, dignified meals for those in need, reflecting the values Ruby had instilled in him. The impact rippled through Atlanta, inspiring other chefs to invest in community programs. Zola's personal life transformed as well. Zoe graduated debt-free, Mama got her medication without worry, and Zola moved into a home with a garden where she grew herbs for the restaurant. Yet, she never forgot the struggle that brought her here. The eviction notice stayed framed in her office as a reminder that success is fleeting without humility and kindness. Every day before service, she touched Ruby's portrait and whispered for guidance. Blending past lessons with present challenges, 1 year later, on the anniversary of the storm that changed everything, Zola extended Ruby's legacy further. On a freezing winter night, she found an elderly woman, lost and cold, and guided her inside to a warm meal. She was Eleanor Patterson, Atlanta's former mayor. The story made citywide news, but Zola deflected attention, reminding everyone that the act of kindness mattered more than recognition. Ruby's table had become a beacon of love, community, and opportunity. Zola's journey demonstrated that talent, heart, and integrity could change the world one meal at a time. Zola stood in the kitchen of Ruby's table, the scent of simmering jambalaya filling the air. Outside, Atlanta was quiet under the fading light of dusk. She looked around at the bustling staff, the polished counters, the laughter of customers. It was hard to believe this was the same truck and tiny apartment that had nearly broken her just a year ago. Every corner of the restaurant carried Ruby's spirit, her love, her resilience. Her portrait watched over everything, smiling as if she knew she had honored her legacy. He remembered the moment she first fed Becky, the hunger in her own belly, the gnawing worry about Zoe Mama, the truck payments. She remembered the rage that had welled up when she discovered Becky's true identity. But more than anything, she remembered the lesson buried beneath the shock. Integrity matters. Talent without heart is hollow. Kindness without courage is wasted. And in that chaos, she had chosen to be generous even when it cost her everything. That choice had changed her life and the lives of so many others. On the restaurant floor, staff moved with purpose. Maria, her first hire, tied on her apron with pride. Tony, the new truck driver, laughed at a customer's joke. Mrs. Lane checked the catering orders, humming softly as she worked. They were more than employees, they were family. And Zola knew that the community that had once supported a struggling food truck now supported a movement. Ruby's Table was more than a restaurant. It was a statement. Love, dignity, and authenticity could thrive even in a world driven by profit and fame. Every Tuesday, Zola led community night, serving free meals to the city's homeless and vulnerable. It wasn't charity in the way most people understood it. It was respect, choice, excellence. Each plate was served with the same care as those that cost $25 because in Ruby's teachings, every stomach mattered, every person deserved love, every soul deserved nourishment. And as she watched faces light up with surprise and gratitude,
Zola felt the true reward of her work. It wasn't in media attention or financial gain, it was in the small, transformative moments of human connection. Kwamaki became more than an ally. He became a friend, a partner in a shared vision. He visited regularly, no longer in disguise, offering guidance, resources, and encouragement. But he never overshadowed Zola. He let Ruby's recipes, Zola's heart, and the authenticity of the restaurant shine. It was the same philosophy Becky had praised a year ago. True talent, unpolished and pure, has the power to move the world. And now it was moving to Atlanta. Zola's family flourished alongside him. Zoe graduated from medical school, bright-eyed and debt-free. Mama's health stabilized, her medication no longer a source of daily stress. And Zola herself, once weighed down by fear and responsibility, felt a new kind of freedom that came from using success to uplift others rather than hoard it. She still touched Ruby's portrait each morning, whispering for guidance. But now her prayers were filled with gratitude. Not desperation. The impact of Ruby's Table extended beyond the restaurant walls. Local schools began culinary programs inspired by Zola's academy. Other restaurants initiated community nights, offering dignity and warmth to those who needed it most. The industry slowly shifted focus from celebrity spectacle to genuine skill. Hidden talents were discovered. Forgotten recipes were celebrated. And in every corner of Atlanta where someone tasted a dish seasoned with love, Ruby's spirit lived on, yet Zola never forgot the small acts that had brought her here. A stranger's gratitude, a critic's honesty, the day she gave away her last meal, the moments of despair that could have broken her, if not for her commitment to kindness. She knew that true legacy wasn't built on headlines or viral stories. It was built on consistency, on character, on choosing generosity even when the world expected selfishness. Each plate she served carried a piece of that legacy. Every smile at her tables reflected the values Ruby had instilled. Winter arrived, as it always does, cold and unforgiving. And every year, Zola carried on a new tradition. When the storm struck, when the wind bit through the city streets, she went out into the cold to bring warmth to those who had none. Blankets, food, a smile, a chair at Ruby's table, they were simple gestures, but they mattered. She had learned the power of one act of kindness. And now she multiplied it, reaching hundreds, touching lives in ways that newspapers and social media could never fully capture. Sitting in his office, framed eviction notice on the wall, Zola reflected on how far he had come. Dreams that once seemed impossible had become reality. Not because of luck or deceit, but because she had chosen to act with heart. The world had tried to weigh her down, to teach him that survival meant compromise, that success required sacrifice of integrity. She had defied that. And in doing so, she had proven something more important, that humanity, compassion, and authenticity were the rarest ingredients of all, and the most powerful dot. As the evening rush died down, Zola stepped outside, gazing at the bronze plaque on the original food truck displayed in the window, where dreams begin with kindness. Children pressed their faces to the glass, dreaming of possibilities. She smiled, remembering her own dreams as a boy, cooking beside Ruby in a small kitchen filled with love. Those dreams had survived storms, hunger, and doubt. And now they were helping others dream too. The city slept, but Zola kept working. Every night she performed the same ritual, hand on Ruby's portrait, whispering, "Thank you, Nana, for helping me make it through today." It was a quiet moment of connection, a reminder that the essence of life, love, dedication, and generosity never changed. Even as everything else did, the world might be harsh, unfair, and unpredictable, but small acts of kindness had the power to ripple outward, changing lives, communities, and perhaps even the future. In a world too often driven by greed and self-interest, Zola's story stood as proof that love is stronger than fear, that talent is most meaningful when paired with integrity, that giving what little you have can become a force for transformation. Ruby's legacy was alive in every plate served, in every life touched, in every neighborhood nourished. And Zola, once a struggling chef, now a beacon of hope, understood the ultimate truth. Greatness is measured not by wealth or fame, but by the lives we lift, the hearts we touch, and the love we season into the world. Because in the end, it was never just about jambalaya. It was about the love that seasoned it. Every day, we face small choices, moments where we can give, even when we feel we have nothing to spare. Zola chose kindness, and it changed not just her life, but countless others. Imagine if each of us acted with that same heart. What if your small gesture, sharing a meal, a smile, a helping hand, could ripple outward and touch lives you'll never even meet? At African Black Tailies, we celebrate stories like Zola's, proof that compassion, courage, and authenticity always come back around. Stories that remind us the world isn't just about wealth, fame, or recognition. It's about love, legacy, and the courage to do what's right when it's hardest. If this story moved you, give it a like, leave a comment sharing a time kindness changed your life, and subscribe. Join us in spreading hope, one story, one act of love at a time.